Fam, welcome back to the CONVO couch, everyone. This is Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
And us with the overalls today is on the ones and twos, giving us the hook 'em horns. Yo, dude. Hawaiian kind of sign out there. Guys, you know the drill. Do us a favor. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. Let's get it out there right now. We have an amazing show for you today. A fun guest. There's a lot of things to break down. We got a guest throughout the whole week. Next Friday, for sure, at the end of this week, this Friday, I should say, excuse me, in less than 5 days, or how many days you want to count till we get there, Garland Nixon, I promise you this time, will be on the show. So we'll get to Garland Nixon. We'll knock back all that stuff we wanted to talk about policing and whatnot, and a list of other things we wanted to talk about. Right, fam?
Are we talking with that? What are we talking about with Don Dore then? Because it's on the title. It says Don Dore, policing salty with Don Dore.
No.
Okay, that's what it says on the title.
Oh, we were talking about Israel, about Biden's trip, a little bit about Ukraine, a little about foreign policy and stuff. So,
all right.
Okay. No doubt.
Okay.
We got this going, though, but we do have a great show for you today. A lot of you might have seen FAM had an unbelievable rant on Friday. It's almost 7,000 people, so go ahead and check that out. That is awesome. I was at Freedom Fest on Saturday, and I got to join.
Freedom.
33% more freedom. I got to join but go witness, and as an observer, as a press observer, the anti-socialist Cuba Libre panel with Martha Bueno, Daniel DiMartino, and a couple other people. And I put up a little audio that I had with a couple pictures of the people inside the actual panel. But we'll be breaking that down a little bit today. I want Fam's opinion on that. So
are you sure? Want my?
Yeah, of course I want your opinion. It got heated in the hallway. We were out in the hallway, and I didn't record that because that wouldn't have been fair because we were just talking in the hallway. And after the panel, and it got a little nasty out there. Let's just say that they haven't returned any of my DMs or emails just yet, but that's that. I also got a chance to interview Scott Horton, fam. He was there. He talked about coming on the show. He hasn't been on the show yet. That Scott Horton interview is up on YouTube as well. And also Kyle Anzalone on AM Wake Up Rokfin. There's an interview with Kyle Anzalone. Kyle Anzalone is actually coming on the AM Wake Up show tomorrow. He's one of the authors and writers for antiwar.com. So it was a very interesting week, and I saw the doctors. I saw Spike Cohen. We had a nice conversation. He said to say hello to you, Fee. He remembered doing our show because he remembered it was when he was starting to do that outreach. And this is the outreach that I met with Angela McArdle, who is the now head of the Libertarian. She's the chair of the Libertarian Party. What they're trying to do, they're actually trying to focus on people like us, fam. Anti-interventionist leftists, anti-imperialist leftists who believe in civil liberties and freedom of speech. She understands that there's a lot of things we're not going to agree on, but what is like the big compromise is what I'm calling it, is what they're focused on. So it's going to be very interesting because hearing Scott Horton speak, Scott Horton thought that Putin didn't exhaust all his particular chances of negotiating and peace before he went in there. In fact, he thought that what peace did, shut up, DC, he thought what Putin did was a little bit too jumpy in that he should have still tried to negotiate. I disagree with him, but that just shows you who Scott Horton, who's part of the Mises Caucus and the foreign policy, this new management is trying to bring to the table when it comes to the Libertarian Party, fam. So it was just a very interesting weekend. It was a lot of fun. I am tired. I still haven't got my rest, but yeah, just a fun, filled, energetic, busy weekend.
Are those libertarians the ones you're so excited about? Okay with lifting the blockade from Cuba and staying away from Nicaragua and Venezuela?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Here's the thing. Freedom Fest has more of it was started by the Patriots, I believe, like the Tea Party Patriots years ago is what Steve kind of explained to me. So it's still, even though it's been infiltrated heavily by a lot of libertarians, it's still a conservative libertarian kind of base that mainly goes there. However, the Mises Caucus was there. The Mises Caucus is now taken over. They are anti-interventionists. They are anti-regime change. it was when I kind of separated from the pack, the Freedom Fest people who booked a lot of people, because the Libertarian Party has no say on who gets booked. And when this is outside the Libertarian Party, they don't choose who gets to go there. That's when I ran into some people that we knocked heads with. I am pretty sure that, the Spike Cohens, the Scott Hortons, the Kyle Anzalones, all these people, they are not down with necessarily those people that were in that panel that I went to. So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So there's hope.
Yeah. They're more anti-interventionist than me, Finn. Probably you. I
don't equate anti-interventionism with allowing a powerful country and an organization like NATO to fucking walk over everybody. I think that's being a pacifist, and pacifism, when you have an entity like NATO and entities like the CIA, to me is extremely naive. I still stand by the fact that if Russia hadn't taken this stance, NATO would have continued expanding, just like they accuse Russia of trying to expand. They would have continued expanding, and Russia would have they would have tried to take over Russia, because the whole point is to wage war with Russia and China. And I just don't see how. I don't consider it an anti-imperialist position to say he shouldn't have gone in. He should have tried something else, because in my opinion, this has been a long time coming and there was nothing else. But I still think they're anti-imperialist. It's just a matter of how if anti-intervention to you means it, period. And I think that's what the establishment capitalizes on with these progressives. Oh, we're anti-imperialism, so that means when China's doing and Russia's doing imperialism, we're going to stand against it by following NATO and CIA propaganda. So that's my issue with that is, once you start going in that direction in your effort to say, oh, I'm an anti-interventionist, well, what does that mean when you take into context everything that's going on geopolitically? And I'm not saying that because I'm here in Russia. I'm saying that because I've thought that before I even came here. But
I agree. And these particular, so you have the Mises organization, which is separate from the Mises caucus. However, they share the same ideology, the Austrian economics. They want to abolish the Fed. Scott Horton and his type, they want to abolish NATO. They don't think there's any need for NATO whatsoever. It's like one of the things that Scott said, and I questioned him. He said in his panel about does NATO need to exist, and his theory was obviously no, that if, in fact, the United States closed all its bases and brought everybody home, will China and Russia take their place? No, they won't. And that's something that a lot of conservatives always kind of point to. If we don't police the planet, then China or Russia will step in. That is something that the Hortons, the Anzalones disagree with, and they made that present in their speeches and during their panels. So, yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Let's get into it, fam. We got a lot of stuff to cover. We got Don Dore coming in about 38 minutes. So do you want to just do the one section and lead into Don? Because that section does seem like it will be a 38-minute section. Or do you want to do the other stuff first?
The section 2 is extremely short. So let's do section 1. Yeah.
All right, let's do section 1, and then we'll lead right into Don Dore. So this
slide 5, 6, 5 and 6. Okay, so so this is what we didn't get to Friday. So basically, Biden took his first trip into the Middle East as president. It was his first time, and so he visited Israel. He visited with Saudi Arabia, and in his visits, there was so much ridiculousness going on, and there is a lot of talk about the relationship between also the United States, Russia, and Iran. It seems like the geopolitical allyship, the axis of power in this instance, are forming between Russia and Iran, which has been a long time coming. And of course, Biden was checking in on Israel and Saudi Arabia, his two allies. The problem is, of course, countries like Saudi Arabia, or real democracies like Saudi Arabia, are operating when it comes to economics more than anything else. So Biden said Israel is a democracy and not an apartheid state. He said this upon his visit to Israel. He also said that the United States, we are never going to go anywhere. And he said that force might be necessary against Iran, the nuclear threat of Iran. So he said this, of course, with Israel, and it took a lot of people, I don't know why, by surprise, because the United States has said this about Iran for a long time, for a very long time. Every other day they say Iran's a nuclear threat and blah, blah, blah. So Iran responded saying that it will issue a harsh and regrettable response to any mistake by Washington. So they called it a mistake. And Biden said that they will use all elements of its national power to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. He said that he won't wait forever for a new nuclear deal with Tehran. And obviously, Biden and Prime Minister Yair Lapid signed in Jerusalem, the joint declaration for their continued strategic partnership. And it affirmed, of course, Washington's continued military aid to Israel and pledged to never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. And so on slide 9, you guys can see from the whitehouse.gov what that was. And some of the rhetoric used here, it always happens, but just so you guys see how convoluted the relationship is between the United States and Israel. And this joint declaration, slide 10, where this is what they said. I'm going to read a little bit of it because it's nauseating, really, just how much the United States gives to Israel. The United States and Israel reaffirmed the unbreakable bonds between our two countries and the enduring commitment of the United States to Israel's security. Our countries further reaffirm that the strategic U.S.-Israel partnership is based on a bedrock of shared values, shared interests, and true friendship. Furthermore, the United States and Israel affirm that among the values the countries share is an unwavering commitment to democracy, the rule of law, and the calling of tikkun olam, repairing the world. The leaders express appreciation to the former Prime Minister Bennett, who led the most diverse government in Israel history. So in Israel history, in an apartheid state, which of course is denied by Israel and the United States, at least there was diversity in the government. At least, intersectional fascism, intersectional imperialism. And then he goes on to talk about the security on the next slide, reiterate its steadfast commitment to preserve and strengthen Israel's capacity to deter its enemies and to defend itself against any threat or combination of threats. So there you go. Sacrosanct. I mean, these are not only moral commitments, but strategic commitments for the national security of the United States itself. So they're admitting that the reasons they continue to support Israel is because it's about the United States' continued interests and national security. And on slide 12, this part is the one of the more important last parts that was mentioned. The United States stresses that integral to this pledge is a commitment never to allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon, and that it is prepared to use all elements of its national power to ensure that outcome. The United States further affirms the commitment to work together with other partners to confront Iran's aggression and destabilizing activities, whether advanced directly or through proxies, and terrorist organizations such as, here we go, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad.
Ding,
so
ding,
here,
ding.
Exactly, they're denying any Palestinian rights, any Palestinian recognition. They're denying, whitewashing what Israel has done to Palestinians. He denied the apartheid. And so this is just all about calling everybody terrorists, Hezbollah, Hamas, the same type of rhetoric. And this is Joe Biden. This is not much different than it was with Trump or with Obama or anything. That just goes to show you the foreign policy doesn't change no matter what. It just doesn't change. And so anything to say on that so far, Pasta?
Nope. I mean, I just love the way they manufacture consent. Like you said, they always throw out these terrorist groups or these other groups that they can use that are great buzzwords, you know, in the United States, how they manufacture consent. Oh, yeah, it's Palestine, but they're close with Hamas, and Hamas is a terrorist organization. Oh, yeah, it's Iran, but Iran is, you know, aligned with Hezbollah, another terrorist organization. We can't do business with that. We bomb them because of Hamas. We bomb them because of Hezbollah. It's the same old thing over and over and over again. And I wish people would learn about, number one, where Hamas came from. Number two, what Hezbollah really is and what it means to the people of Iran and Lebanon.
Yeah, their defense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the result of pushing back. It's the same issue I have even with this Russia-Ukraine conflict. It's like you're attacking. When people attack back to defend themselves, really, from the country that is getting all the funding, all the backing from the United States, then they're the terrorists. And that's what we're seeing here, what we've been seeing with Palestinians and how they're Semitic people, but it doesn't even count because they're not backed by the United States. They're not backed by NATO. And this is where conservatives also have a strong defective stance, is where they side with a lot of Israel's crimes. They whitewash it and they label the Palestinians all as being terrorists. And so Iran, of course, like I said, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi countered, of course, with some words in response to the meeting. And he said the great nation of Iran will not accept any insecurity or crisis in the region, and Washington and its allies should know that any mistake will be met by a harsh and regrettable response from Iran. Islamic Iran is stronger than ever, and the power of the Americans is weaker than ever. And he said that U.S. sanctions regime on Iran, dubbed the maximum pressure campaign by the Trump administration, has failed, but they are repeating this experience. So these sanctions are not working. Again, the sanctions that the United States has tried to impose on Iran, he's saying the Americans are the ones that are weaker. And of course, we know that that is true. We know that the United States is not in the position that it once was around the world, economically, geopolitically. There is this shift happening, and Iran sees that, which is why they've been communicating more and more with Russia. Now, Russia has been, as I said before, not particularly anti-Israel. They have, particularly Vladimir Putin as a leader, is what many call a Zionist. He's at the very least extremely familiar with Israel. He has a lot of Israeli friends. They haven't called out Israel against everything. They've recently called out Israel, I think, against attacking Syria. But it's been more and more, but it was never like that because Russia sees a way to keep peace in the region via cooperating with Israel as well. So
can I say something about that real quick too as well?
Yeah.
That once again, and it's funny because the last American Vagabond was on today. The one thing I disagree with him when he was talking about the possibilities why people think that Putin is no longer playing with the World Economic Forum. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't get into it with him like that. But just on the what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say the geopolitical. When you're good with an adversary, right? Whatever word that is, fam, when you come to it, Putin is really, really, really good at those things. He has a relationship with MBS. There's a famous thing, and you'd think that, like, okay, here's MBS, here's the monarch, here's the family that has been backed by the U.S. government for for how many years, for how long. You think he and MBS and Putin wouldn't even talk to each other? There's a famous little clip of them coming in the room and hitting like teenagers, hitting hands and then bumping with their shoulders. So, Putin is really good at dealing with his adversaries, his frenemies of sorts. You know what I'm saying? The relationship he had with Erdogan was on, off, whatnot. But he was always open to talk to people, no matter what. That's always something I've always admired about Putin, that he's always been able to talk to people that they would normally consider enemies, where the United States does that. We're not talking to them. We're shutting them out. We're sanctioning them. We're going to isolate them. Putin has never done that. Not that what I've seen. I'm sure he has in some cases, but not when it comes to Israel and not when it comes to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, he talks to everybody. And I think a lot of people thought that he was, because he is anti-Western interventionism, that he was going to be harder on Israel. So a lot of people on the left have ignored that. No, Russia has been pretty permitting of Israel, which deserves some criticism. However, there's a lot of politics to understand behind all that. On to the next thing. So this is the Israeli prime minister, who pretty much is ready, just like the United States has declared, to go to war with Iran. So let's listen to what he said.
In the world, that we will never let that happen. Words will not stop them, Mr. President. Diplomacy will not stop them. The only thing that will stop Iran is knowing that if they continue to develop their nuclear program, the free world will use force. The only way to stop them is to put a credible military threat on the table.
Meet the new boss, fam?
Same as the old boss.
Jesus.
I mean, they basically want to threaten Iran. They're escalating. This is escalating language. Israel is ready, and they have the backing of the United States. Iran has the backing of Russia. Russia has the backing of China. You can see where I'm going with this. I mean, this is, again, there's so many paths to nuclear war right now. So many. But this is one of the bigger ones as well, because this involves the same players. Israel will have to choose, though, because I don't know. Russia and both have to make decisions about that. And so I think, like I said before in my rant, I said it's coming to a point where there's going to be a choice, I think, of which side are you on, or they're all just going to tell the United States, sorry, we're not going to blow the world up just because of your interest, right? And so that may well happen. It depends on if the marmot, did something in one direction or the other. I don't know.
That friggin' marmot, fam.
Freaking weasel marmot. So speaking of weasels, here is Joe Biden. Joe Biden getting off the plane. And Joe Biden said something like, what am I doing now? Like, this is more of Joe, Sleepy Joe. Yeah, run it again.
One more time.
Very quick. He said it in the very beginning. What am I doing now? He's, this is just, I put this in as comic because we're talking about really serious things, and then you have Joe Biden representing, doing all these. It's just hilarious. Like, he's just, he's barely there, guys.
He's barely there. I don't even know he's there at all, fam. Jesus, the dude is just lost.
So this, I don't know if you got this video. Were you not able to get it? Okay. So it's just these people talking about protesting is the United States, Biden in particular, saying that you're part of Israel's apartheid. It's just if you just want to play it a little bit, I don't know if we're going to be able to understand much, but. So you guys can see the what they're saying. There's a lot of against Biden's presence in the region because he whitewashed, well, not he, the United States State Department whitewashed Shireen Abu-Akleh's murder. completely allowing, Israel to do their own investigation, saying, oh, that there was this investigation. And it just wasn't a legitimate investigation in the eyes of the people. And of course, Biden did not make it to see her family who requested to see him. You have a thing here, or is this me?
Yeah, fam. Well, I want to talk a little bit about what exactly some of the trip that was going on, because it was kind of funny. The Biden campaign really thought it would be a bad publicity if he's caught seen shaking hands with MBS. Remember, he had never spoke to MBS, not even on the phone. MBS is a new regime within Saudi Arabia. They had the whole Khashoggi thing because not only were the Democrats there, but they were also the Republicans were mad about Khashoggi. But they wanted to do this situation where, like, okay, this is the Biden campaign came up, and this is called the Middle East handshake ban that never wasn't. And it says the White House apparent efforts to publicly distance President Biden from the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman are making for a diplomatic spectacle. A ban on presidential handshakes during his trip to Israel and Saudi Arabia this week lasted only a few minutes after Air Force One landed in Israel today. And this is a little excerpt from the New York Times. It says President Biden avoided shaking hands upon landing on Israel Wednesday, just as aides hinted he would, citing the rapidly spreading new coronavirus subvariant, and fist bumped local leaders instead. But only minutes later, he evidently forgot and shook hands with two former prime ministers anyways, fam. So they came up with this plan, fam. Like, okay, listen, we have to avoid a handshake with you and MBS. This is a political nightmare, a PR nightmare. So let's just say, because of new COVID variants and whatnot, that you're just going to do fist bumps instead. Well, Biden, donkey, he forgot the plan within minutes. Here he is when he got off the plane, just rushing on over to his boy Bibi. And once again, the aides were like, okay, there goes that. I guess he's shaking everybody's hands. Check it out.
נאומים לא מצאנו כותרות בלתי צפויות, כמובן שיתוף הפעולה, שותפות הגורל, התמיכה, ישראל, ארצות הברית, היתר יהיה כבר בפרטים הבאים. ועכשיו צילום עם שרי הממשלה.
So there it is, fam. Within minutes, they were like, all right, we're going to practice in Israel. So when you get to Saudi Arabia, but he blew it right away, fam. It took him literally like 5 minutes, and then he blew it. And he told Netanyahu, I love you, man, and all this other bullshit and stuff. But yeah, that's why I just wanted to throw that in there, because this guy, he'll screw up a wet dream. I'm so sorry, but I just thought it was hysterical that was going on. The fact that they're going to like, all right, we'll avoid you handshaking MBS. Let's practice in Israel. He forgot almost immediately.
And just more of protests against Joe Biden. Here are some protesters burning a picture of him, saying that he's a part of it. This is from Fort Fisher's, and we're just going to show 40 minutes of it. It's like a 3-minute video, so just the first 40 minutes.
Yeehaw! Here we go.
Yeah. So Biden isn't liked by the people in his own country. He's not liked by people outside the country. He's got to be one of the most unpopular presidents in history.
Who likes him?
I don't even know if his wife likes him, to be honest.
Brooklyn Dad Defiant is like the only guy that likes him.
Well, and of course, here's Biden willing to go nuclear. This was from a little bit ago, but this is when he basically reiterated the same position he went to Israel to cement.
Are you committed to keep the IRGC on the foreign terrorist organization list, even if that means that kills the deal?
Yes.
You, in the past, said you'll do anything, and you say it again, that you'll ensure Iran would not acquire nuclear weapons. Does that also mean, sir, that you would use force against Iran? Is that what that means? If needed?
That was the last resort, yes.
And would you work on Israel with that kind of thing? Have you received any assurances from
I'm
Israel?
not going to speculate on that, but Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon.
But we can have nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah. Israel can have.
I mean,
not Iran. No.
yeah.
No.
So again, back to the Shireen Abu-Akleh situation. So President Joe Biden claimed, and this is both by Al Jazeera, that the U.S. will achieve accountability for Shireen Abu-Akleh's killing. He gave a whole speech. We have part of it. And then the meeting with Shireen Abu-Akleh's family, not on Biden's schedule. He rebuffed the request to meet with the journalist's family. He said he didn't have time, that all this and that. And then, of course, on top of that, when he was giving the speech saying they're going to find justice, even though he wouldn't meet with her family, he said he mispronounced her name. Now, I know we're all guilty of mispronouncing names, but he's talking about her in particular. He's the leader of the free world. This is just, it was just bad, especially after not meeting with her family.
Biden mispronounces his own name. That's how bad he is.
All right, Jack.
Go ahead, Oz, run it. Thank you,
It's heart-wrenching that so many Palestinian and Israelis have lost their lives just this year. And the United States has suffered loss as well, including the killing of Shireen Abu-Akleh. And she was an American citizen and a proud Palestinian. And she was performing very vital work in an independent media and vital work of democracy. Her death is enormous loss to the essential work of sharing with the world the story of the Palestinian people. I hope that her legacy will inspire more young people to carry on her work of reporting the truth and telling stories that are too often overlooked.
So you can get shot.
The United States will continue to insist on a full and transparent accounting of her death, and will continue to stand up for media freedom everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Julian Assange?
Where do we want to start with that one? Where do we start with that speech?
Julian
Shireen
Assange?
Abu-Akleh?
Yeah.
For one, yes, we're going to ensure a transparent investigation over her death by saying Israel's not an apartheid state.
Mumia?
By saying that everybody is a terrorist, every Palestinian is a terrorist. Tell us about the story of Palestinian people, Biden. Tell us about really what's going on, the real story. And then, of course, as you guys have said, the United States will continue ensuring freedom of the press. Really? I mean, Julian Assange, Mumia would like a word. Yeah. All of the whistleblowers that have had to either go to Russia, like Edward Snowden, or by the way, the CIA, John Schulte, the ex-CIA analyst, John Schulte.
Old 7.
I mean, this is ridiculous. United States is the only country trying to impose international jurisdiction. And you just met with the dude who murdered Jamal Khashoggi.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's just freaking hilarious. And here it is, right? Will Biden raise Khashoggi's murder with MBS? Did he? I don't know.
He did. I put in there what the it's wait until you get to what the Crown Prince said to him. It put it right back in his face.
So yeah, let's just go there. The
number 34, it says Saudi Arabia MBS turns the tables on Biden. U.S. Do you remember Abu Ghraib? He said, do you want to sit there and you want to lecture me? Remember Abu Ghraib? And he goes on to say more, fam. This is slide 36. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
35.
35 was the thing, and now 34. Now here's 35. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, thank you by the way, reportedly told President Joe Biden during their meeting on Friday that while the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi is regrettable. U.S.'s hands are not clean, and any other journalists are killed with impunity. Ben Solomon's smarmy reply underlines the way in which the U.S. government's lawlessness and its weird commitment to Israeli apartheid undermine its moral standing. Ben Solomon specifically mentioned that the torture scandal at the U.S. military prison at Abu Ghraib, Iraq, and the killing of Palestinian American Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu-Akleh by Israeli forces in May, according to Al Ariba, which is owned by Saudi government. The de facto Saudi rulers also said that the CIA, which along with other American intelligence agencies concluded that Khashoggi's gruesome 2018 murder was likely ordered by Ben Solomon. Why is it repeating? It's repeating. I'm echoing. I'm in my.
Hey, Don.
Yeah, you got it. The de facto Saudi ruler also said that the CIA, which along with other American intelligence agencies, concluded that Khashoggi's gruesome 2018 murder was likely ordered by Ben Solomon, makes mistakes, as it did when it falsely claimed that Iraq had active weapons of mass destruction program prior to the 2003 U.S.-led invasion of the occupation, fam. So he threw it right back in his face. He was like, "Yep. I don't tell you to say anything to me about Khashoggi. I mean, you got your own problems in there." We did get a great picture of them inside one of the palaces over there. Take a look. So there's Biden with the gas tank. Standing next to
hilarious.
Who did this? He's just standing there with the gas tank next to MBS. And the last clip we have before we bring on our guests, and we're going to go right into the subject too as well, because he's an expert at it too as well. He's one of my favorite anti-war activists. Dore will be on. Take a look at this. This is Biden leaving Saudi Arabia.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
I don't know what that, I might have been making that echo with my mixer here. Are you hearing an echo?
Not anymore.
Okay. So,
tiny one.
I'm sorry, say that.
It's a tiny echo. Sorry.
I'm watching Joe stumble.
It's crazy. Do you have an earpiece that might help out?
You know what it is? It's different than that. The problem isn't the monitor. The problem is that for some reason your signal doesn't come through this usual loop that comes out of my computer. It's going into my mix, and I think it's getting fed in twice. So maybe I could log off and come back on in a minute.
Log off and come back in, and we'll get you back in.
Okay,
guys. We're going to do a quick log off with Don Dore, and then he'll come right back on in, and we will get started. He had a little bit of an echo, but we'll be able to fix that. But fam, that was it. From what I heard is that he jailed the 4th, 5th, and 6th steps closest to the plane. Biden did for what those steps did to him. That's your president of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, right there.
That is your president.
Hashtag not my president. Let's do a quick we have 2 Super Rays real quick. We'll read those real quick, and Don should be in a second. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Don Dore, anti-war activist, coming on the show. Brandon Duhamel. Pasta, loved how you gave it to those anti-socialists at Freedom Fest, but you needed a comeback for that lady with the crocodile tears talking about how she has to take medicine to her family over to Cuba and talk on boats out in the water, right? That one. I mean, why can't they get medicine? Huh? Could it be the illegal and inhumane sanctions? What the F? What's up, Pete? I was part of the audience, and they were wrapping it up, and they were trying to shut everybody up and cutting off microphones and getting outside. And when I did get outside, I didn't confront her at all. I wasn't going to talk to that lady. I thought what she had said. And in fact, I almost thought about cutting that, not putting it in there. But I thought it was important to show the BS stuff that comes right from the State Department's mouth, from the CIA itself, and then it's repeated and clapped upon by people who consider themselves activists of those countries that are coming here to bash socialism and capitalism. And in that particular crowd, like I said, if you're a libertarian, the first thing that's supposed to be on your mind is anti-regime changes, anti-intervention. Those particular type of people, I think, were down for any type of regime change whatsoever, simply because they didn't like the ideology of what's going on there. Yet I pointed out that their elections are so much more transparent and sound. Why don't you just try to have a movement here at home first before you go changing somebody else's government? So,
and just real quick before we bring on our guests, it's just interesting to me how these people that are so, oh, we're against the fascism, the authoritarianism from COVID, and we're against any attacks on free speech, and we know that, you know, it's the same thing that's my issue with people on the left who ignore the COVID stuff. It's like, oh, we're on the right, so we're anti-authoritarian, these mandates and stuff. So you think that the government that is doing this isn't doing the same thing to other countries? Like, does that not matter to you because it's another country? Are you going to ignore the sanctions, the blockade that has made it possible for the Cuban people to have to live this way because they can't access anything? It's the same thing when you have sanctions here on Russia. People can't access their money if they want to send money overseas. It's when you give sanctions, those are an act of siege war. So you're saying, oh, I'm against these, you know, regime change wars, but only on the countries that I think are wrong. Like, if I disagree with the ideology, then it's okay. And so I think these people, they remind me of Ron DeSantis, because they are only anti free speech or anti something when it comes to their ideology.
Don, we're getting a big echo now. This is by Ratfink and Marmalade, the last super egg. Financial ties between Biden and Israel, maybe through the DNC? Question mark. Repubs won't prosecute Biden for that. Both sides
come in
are
via Skype, maybe? You have any way to mix it?
I don't know. How's it sound now? Can you hear us?
Sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
No, he can't hear you. He needs earplugs.
Do you have earplugs on? Or?
Yeah, hang on.
Let's give it a shot. Yeah, it's kind of crazy because the same people that they're talking about as far as like all the COVID restrictions and all that, what they were really disgusted about, those are the people who are trying to overthrow these socialist governments. And at the end of the day, my position has always been...
Okay, there's the earphones. Do you have an echo?
No echo. Can you hear? Now we do a little bit.
Yes, we do.
The problem it's not a feedback loop here with a speaker to microphone. It's different. For some reason, the signal from Zoom is not being directed to the output that I have everything wired for, and I can't find it elsewhere. I don't know why that is.
The output?
Yeah, in other words, what you send to me, the sound output from Zoom into my computer, normally can get directed through the virtual mixer to a particular... for some reason, it's not going there. I have to open one of the pots on my mixer, and that's creating a feedback loop in the mixer. And I can't isolate. Hold on, I might be able to actually do that. Is it now?
You sound, yeah.
You still got echo?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what to
It's
do.
tolerable, though, so go forward, guys.
Okay.
You sure? I'm hearing a bad echo on your end.
I can hear it fine.
Okay.
Does the audience hear the echo?
Audience, do you hear it? Testing. Does anybody hear the? You guys, how do you guys? How are you hearing this? Does it sound? Is it an echo? You guys hear an echo? There's an echo.
Yeah, there's an echo.
Sorry.
He sounds right. He has no echo.
We need to do this offline, I guess, another time. I apologize. I mean, I'm glad to stay on, but I don't want to make your audience run around screaming at each other.
No, I know there's a bad echo. Echo like crazy. Pasta and B are echoed. So we are echoed.
Yeah, there's two instances going through his mixer. Of
Right.
the audio.
I can't isolate them. I can't even see them. They're not showing up in my
But
virtual
he
stuff.
sounds great. So if you want to ask the question, just toggle off your mixer while Fee and Pasta are talking. That would be
I could
great
do that.
That'd be great, Don. Okay, let's try it.
Okay.
All right.
So let's just ask him.
You can't hear me.
I can't hear you if I do that.
All right, it's a bad echo. Let's exit on out. And I don't know. Maybe try.
We'll have to fix it.
Off,
Another time.
yeah, not during a program. All right. Guys, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Show Don's face though, so he can come back on. We'll get him on another time. There's Don Dore, guys. I've wanted to have Don on for a while, so we'll get him on another time.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Don.
Bye, Don.
Bye, guys.
That was weird. That was so weird.
Yeah.
What?
That is just impossible to listen to though, because it's so distracting. Sorry guys about that. I don't know. It has to be on his settings on his own, on his end. So I'm sure we'll figure it out at some point. So I guess let's just continue to the section 2. So slide 38. So this is what I wanted to cover before. Ukraine has continued shelling civilians in Donetsk, like we've been covering here for a while. And they recently released a Nazi and a rapist. Now, this has been not really talked about, but I wanted to shed some light on it. So far, 2 civilians lost their lives, with another 6 civilians sustaining injuries as a result of Ukrainian shelling of the city of Donetsk. This reported this past Thursday. The leader of the Donetsk People's Republic, Denis Pushlin, said in a Telegram post that the Ukrainian military had hit a bus terminal. Among the victims was a young woman who was going home from work and a bus driver, the official revealed. Pushlin claimed that a U.S.-supplied M777 howitzer had been used in the attack against an area where there was no military installations, and described the attack as yet another deliberate shelling of civilians in the Republic. So throughout this conflict, Ukraine has been blaming Russia, saying that they've been shelling civilians. And Russia has been able to prove that there are weapons in the areas they've been trying to shell. There have been countless on-the-ground reporting from countless journalists that I constantly name, like Eva Bartlett, Patrick Lancaster, Maxim Goriev, and there's just so many others that have been on the ground and showing and interviewing people that have said no, that they are kept there by the SBU, that they're kept there by the members of the Ukrainian military who are keeping them there so they can be used as to say that the Russians are attacking civilians because they keep them in the same area where they have their weapons. So contrary to that, of course, is this that's been happening where Ukraine has been shelling the Russians. And so Russians have completely said, we have not been trying to, we don't keep weapons there. These are residential areas. The West and the media aren't talking about the shelling on Russians by, on Ukrainian, pro-Russian Ukrainians or areas in the Donetsk that are largely controlled by Russia, by Ukraine. And also on Thursday, the authorities in Kiev claimed that Moscow hit the city of Vinnytsia with missiles, supposedly killing 20 people, among 3 children, with 52 injured. So that was what was all over Western media. And the Russian military didn't immediately comment on the attack, but RT editor-in-chief Margarita Simonyan cited a Russian defense official as confirming the strike and claiming that it targeted a building which had been used as a temporary shelter for Nazi fighters. So that was their retort. And as I said, both Kiev and Moscow have repeatedly accused each other of hitting civilian targets. Russia insists that only military objects are targeted. So that's what's been happening. And here is an excerpt from a military reporter who came to the town of Privoli in the Lugansk People's Republic, which has, of course, been in control of Russian-led forces. And the locals there describe crimes committed by the Ukrainian Nazi Tornado Battalion since 2014. Now, this man that was released from prison for crimes including rape and murder was a member of the Ukrainian Nazi Tornado Battalion. In fact, he was the commander of the Nazi Tornado Battalion. And on July 11th, the former commander, his name is Ruslan Onishenko, was released by a presidential decree after completing 7 years in prison out of the 11 he was committed to. And this was reported by Ukrainian media. And the Oblong court in Kiev had sentenced Onishenko to 11 years in prison for torturing civilians and prisoners of war in 2017. He was also convicted 3 times for extrajudicial executions, rape, robbery, possession of weapons, and other crimes. And he was detained in June of 2015, as well with other Tornado militants. They were charged with kidnapping and torturing residents of Lysychansk in the Lugansk People's Republic, as well as gang raping a man and looting. And the investigation of the case, which included 80 volumes, 111 witnesses, and 13 victims, lasted almost 2 years. And on April of 2017, the court in the Obolon district sentenced him and several of these soldiers of the National Battalion to 74 years in prison for all. But of course, it was reduced to 11, and then his was reduced to 11, and he served 7. And that battalion in particular was actually created by the Ukrainian Ministry of Internal Affairs on September 2014. So Ukraine actually created this fascist battalion, and it included militants from the Shakhtarsk battalion, which was disbanded for looting and crimes against local residents. And Onishenko had already been sentenced twice before joining this Tornado battalion. So he has been a longtime criminal, and of course, he was released by Zelensky. And here is a couple of tweets talking about who he is, and a picture of him, another picture of him. So, commander of the infamous Tornado Battalion was released, Ruslan Onishenko. He used to terrorize the people of Donetsk and had torture and rape chambers set up in a school basement that they operated until his imprisonment. And the second one, today, Ruslan Onishenko, the commander of the neo-Nazi Tornado Battalion, was released from prison by the Zelensky regime, alongside thousands of criminals. Onishenko had previously been condemned to 10 years of imprisonment for rape, torture, and murder of civilians. And I have this telegram as well, because this is just overall touching on everything. And I don't know if you can just cowboy this. And usually I post the telegram videos, but I didn't have a chance to post this one. So this is the ministry spokeswoman for the Foreign Ministry of Affairs of Russia. And she is talking about how she is seeking to invite journalists to in the West to interview representatives of the Donbass. But she said that interview will probably likely never happen. So let's listen to what she says.
Представителем этого региона. Вы же оттуда. Конечно. Вы же не житель Москвы и Санкт-Петербурга. Я вам даю...
Коллега, дайте вопрос.
Лично вам даю разрешаю, можно сказать, повелеваю вам взять интервью у представителя Донбасса, который находится в этом здании, является вашим коллегой-журналистом. Начните с него, поговорите с ним. Вам же никогда не разрешат этот материал показать. Вы же знаете это лучше меня. И вы знаете это. И никогда эти материалы не появятся на CNN. Потому что вокруг тогда штаб-квартиры начнут ходить кругами заказные демонстранты. И вас начнут отменять точно так же, как всех отменяют других, кто показывает правду. Еще раз говорю, какое вам нужно разрешение, чтобы взять интервью у человека, который приехал с Донбасса? Никакого не нужно разрешения. Я вам разрешила, он тоже. Поговорите с ним, он вам расскажет правду. Ведь вы так любите показывать в кадре простых людей из какого-то региона, да? Вам так нравится показывать конкретную жизнь простого, ну, я не знаю, гражданина Украины. Вот вам простой житель Донбасса. Ну, наверное, ваш еще коллега. Поговорите с ним.
Да, так и есть. Мария.
So, laying it out. I mean, CNN will never interview these people. CNN will never allow the truth to get out because they're not allowed to, because they're propaganda. And they spent all this time talking about how RT is Russian state propaganda, how they control everything, but they never offer another view from the other side. What they do instead is they censor and take down any YouTube channel and every single Russian state affiliated, or what they claim is Russian state affiliated channel, and they don't allow that viewpoint to get out. And so that is essentially what she was saying. And a lot of people should should hear that, because it's true. I mean, we say it all the time here. Before this conflict started, CNN does not allow the truth to get out. And when it does, they shut it down quickly. They go to a break. They shut whoever's being interviewed down off. They fire them. We've seen this happen on MSNBC. We've seen some of these anchors who started telling the truth be fired and then go to RT. I mean, we've seen this happen. So it's interesting to hear it from.
And if it does get out, it's a controlled release of information. It's when it's been too much of an avalanche or a landslide and they can't withhold the information anymore. They can't keep it secret. Then they kind of release it in a controlled way. And that's something that's very, interesting too as well. But the fact is, fam, that they're letting this guy out. Wow. Just thinking about it. I'm saying? They're at that part of the war now where it's empty out your prisons. The guy, had, torture freaking facilities and chambers and shit like that. He's the craziest of the craziest, but we're at that point, fam. We're at that point.
Yeah, and nobody's talking about how this guy was released in Western media. Like, where's the oh my God, where we clutch our pearls at a moron with the horns, right? And who sat on Nancy Pelosi's chair and on January 6th and the Trump supporters with the Trump hat. And the one idiot with a Confederate flag, and the one moron with a Nazi flag. But this guy, let's not talk about him. Let's pretend that this, there's not a huge Nazi problem, and let's call all the Canadian truckers Nazis too while we're at it. Sure.
Amen, fam. Amen. They've been trying to. What are they doing right now? They're kind of like glorifying Zelensky. I believe on Netflix they released his show or some shit. Ty was telling me about it, so it's just like, here we go again. Now here they're trying to glorify the guy because he's just coming under so much heat. There's been so many crazy funny memes out there. There's actually like a parody going on now where they're acting like Zelensky. Some little dude plays Zelensky. They got a Zelensky lookalike, and there's also a meme out there with him just standing over a table and a giant freaking thing of Coke, a mound of Coke. And then there's him like just coked out at a meeting or an event saying something. So looks like we're frozen. There we go. Back to life.
I'm waiting for Jeremy Renner to play Volodymyr Zelensky
as Voldemort green screen Zelensky. You guys, want to remind you, on the Convo Couch YouTubes, there's an interview with Scott Horton. It's awesome. If you go to AM Wake Up Rokfin, there's an interview with Kyle Anzalone. And of course, what we're going to talk about in a little bit on the YouTubes, on the Convo Couch YouTubes, this experience I had over the weekend. Fam, do you have anything
let's talk about that.
All right.
No, I'm ready to talk about the freaking Gusano bullshit going on.
Well, I knew Saturday I would have the full day there. Friday, obviously, we had the thing going on, the show, and I caught some stuff towards the end. But Saturday was the day where I'm going to make up a lot of ground. It was my full loaded day. Got there real early, did an interview with Scott Horton, then went to a panel. I went to an election integrity. Let me go integrity there, if you could see that there. Panel. There it is. Is it coming up? Okay. Integrity. There it is. Panel. And I almost got thrown out of that one. But then I went to the Cuba Libre, a reason against socialism and blah, 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 in Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba. Now, I want everybody to remember, I was not part of this panel. I was not set there to speak. It just went to audience questions, and they usually can take 2, maybe 3 questions. Sometimes in some panels, it was 1 question. I believe in the Ben Swan panel, he got like 4 questions, but most of the other panels ran so close to the edge that they didn't even get questions sometimes. So they took questions, and I immediately jumped up. I was the second person to ask a question. And after hearing about 50 minutes of just all this BS that sounded like it was coming from the State Department's mouth, I threw my little opinions in there. Now, the last part, the little Karen, that kind of spews off. I thought about cutting that part, but I just thought it was important to play this shit and what actually comes out of people's mouths, and then the actual support from the people who are representing that country, like a Martha Bueno of Cuba and a Dan DiMartino of Venezuela, who's on the right side. So let's take a look at this and listen up, and then we'll get Fam's opinion.
Hey guys, Pastor Jardula here. Listen, I was at Freedom Fest the other day and I was in a little panel that I went to go check out. I'd actually done my homework and knew who was on this panel. The name of the panel, and I got it right here, was called Cuba Libre, The Fight Against Socialism. And it was with Martha Bueno, who was a libertarian candidate down in Florida, and also this guy named Daniel DiMartino, who I saw on a couple conservative channels, an ex-Venezuelan citizen that now lives in the United States that just can't stand socialism. And it also had Jorge Galacia and Antolo Marti. I was able to record audio what went on. So I clipped it all up and I put up some pictures of the actual place so you can see and experience what we had to go through over at Freedom Fest. Check it on out. I hope you like it.
Another question? Okay.
Hello guys, thank you so much for coming today. There's a lot of things I strongly disagree with you guys about, and however, I respect the fact that you're here. My name is Craig Pasta Jardula. I have a show. I've invited you on, Martha, and I will do the same for everybody else. I am an election integrity observer. I just got back from Colombia from observing their elections. I went to Honduras, I went to Nicaragua, I went to Peru, and observed all these elections. This is the fundamental thing I can't understand with what's going on with this panel over here right now. Libertarians, more than anything, they believe in non-interventionism, okay? If they have election systems that are so much more clean, transparent, fair to what we're witnessing in the United States, then who are we to intervene in any way whatsoever? And we do have 80 military bases in the global south. That says something here. I don't disagree necessarily, because I'm not here to advocate for socialism or communism whatsoever, and I don't disagree necessarily with your ideology. I just don't understand your position in which we think that you can intervene when they have way more of a representative democracy system than we do here in the United States.
Did you include Cuba on that list?
I did include Cuba, and I am going to include Venezuela in that list too as well, because I haven't gone to these places, but I do talk to the election integrity activists.
Right, so
Venezuela,
Cubans,
some of the best elections.
Cubans, the average Cuban, has not voted in Cuba for at least the last 64 years.
That's not what I
know what you're saying, but I have family in Cuba. I talk to Cubans. I talk to Cubans who come directly from Cuba, and nobody that is not part of the regime.
We're running out of time a little bit, so please let them answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Has been able to vote in Cuba for the last 64 years. So that's wonderful that you were able to watch the party vote. And I agree with you. I think that the party is really able to vote in Cuba. However, the people are not.
Yeah, I would also say, look at Nicaragua, how many presidential candidates from the opposition were incarcerated before the election. Does that make any sense?
But we know why, right?
No, I don't know why.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
You can't be working with NGOs in the United States, taking money and funding for them, and then expect to run.
Yeah, because they were going to win and they...
I can tell you about Venezuela. I can tell you that in Venezuela, government employees are forced to vote for the regime, and you can talk to government employees yourself.
I was a government employee,
maybe instead of talking with election integrity activists who are not even Venezuelan or even support the Maduro regime, you should talk with Venezuelan people who are
That's who we do talk to. That's who we do talk to.
Venezuelan people.
Yes, with the Venezuelan people, we have a lot of contact. I met with a lot of Venezuelan.
Well, I hope you think that a free election doesn't mean to you being forced to vote for someone.
Okay,
That's what
I would like to see the proof on that, because that seems like a lot of.
Sorry, I have to say something because I go to Cuba every single year.
Yes.
I've been going since 2009. I'm very passionate. I might be a gringa, pero hablo español muy bien. And it's not true what you're saying. They have zero say. Zero. In fact, if they go out and they protest on the streets, guess what happens? They go to prison, or they're killed, or they take the rations away from their entire families for 2 months. That's what's happening in Cuba. I can go there. I'm so blessed to be able to go there. I just took 400 pounds of medicine, medications, clothes, and shoes 2 weeks ago. I just got back a week ago. I'm very passionate about them. But for people to say something when they've not been there, you should go there and don't stay in the hotels and don't stay in the government places. Go stay with the people like I do. And you know what happens? They have to take me out into the ocean because they're afraid to death to talk where their neighbors are going to hear them and report them to the government. So I've spent hours treading water out in the ocean talking to Cuban people who are scared to death of their government because there's always listening ears. And guess what also happens? They never guess I'm an American. They guess Swedish, they guess Russian, I have no idea why. And they say, don't listen to our government. We the people, we love you Americans. We know that you Americans, we know the sky is the limit, and all of us want to be there, and I support any Cuban who wants to come. In fact, I've helped 3 of them already come by giving them money.
Thank you so much. And one last...
Thank you guys for what you're doing.
No, thank you for your statement. That means a lot for us. Thank you.
That was that, fam. I'm sorry right now. I just got a little bit touched from AREM right there, showing some love. Really, AREM, you're going to bring me to tears because that's just so awesome that you help us out. But let me stay focused on this subject, and we'll get to the super raise at the very end. And whatnot, my Italian word, whatnot.
And whatnot.
We went into the hallway. I just want to let everybody know I didn't approach that woman and talk to her about it. But the 2 gentlemen on the particular panel, the last one we heard, I encourage you to not talk to election integrity activists, but talk to people. When we were just hanging out in Mexico on the border with Venezuelan activists that lived there, were born there, that hold delegations all the time. It's like, please don't get me going. But we went into a little bit of a disagreement out in the hallway, and we started talking about Colombia, and they didn't realize that I went to Colombia over there. And they're like, why do you think the people voted against the peace agreement, almost heavily and stuff? I said, maybe it wasn't the proper peace agreement, but you guys went in there and you started talking about Petro at one point, and they're saying that Petro was a communist. Well, we happened to talk to the head of the Communist Party, who said clearly that Petro is not left enough. He's nowhere near a communist, but they were willing to settle with Petro. A lot of people were willing to settle with Petro because they felt he was the best to make a peace agreement that could be reached. And that was one of the big reasons why they elected him. And at the end of the day, whatever you think about him is what you think about him. The elections are clear, transparent, and fair. And once again, far better than our elections whatsoever. Daniel DiMartino wasn't crazy about me. I took his information. I've emailed him. I've invited him to come on the show Thursday. I figured we can do a pickup panel if he wanted to come there, fam. But he hasn't responded back. I reached out to Martha Bueno.
He hasn't.
And Martha Bueno said something that was a little bit, I don't know, it was unique. And I totally disagree, and I would like to hear her position on that and have more of a conversation. She said not necessarily that did she want the United States to intervene, but to get out of the way. In other words, saying that there are Cubans here with guns that can go and pretty much take care of their own country situation, which is just...
They're not. They left the country a long time ago. They're not Cubans. They're not...
I mean, I wanted to say to her right there, fam, and I'll give you the microphone, your opinion. I said, well, yeah, the Bay of Pigs worked out so well for you. The mindset to think that Cubans in Miami can take guns and go to Cuba and take back their homeland because the American government is the way.
For the United States.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. They have Russian-grade military weapons there, ladies and gentlemen. There's no Cubans taking back their own country from Miami. Go ahead, fam.
They're not cute. Like, they left a long time ago. Bro, I grew up in Miami. With people who hated Fidel. It's part of the indoctrination, and I get it. I get why they hate him. I mean, there's this whole situation that happens in Latin America when you don't know your history, when you see what's happening, but you don't know what led to it. You blame the current leader, and that's what's happened in a lot of places in Latin America. That's why you had such strong neoliberalism in places like Peru, in places, the people who have left Venezuela, the people who have left Cuba, the people who have left Nicaragua, because they don't understand what led to the poverty that happened in those countries. Why didn't that lady understand that the reason she had to bring supplies to Cubans is because of the sanctions and the blockade that the United States has imposed on Cuba for decades? And that is never talked about. That is never addressed in any way, shape, or form. Why has Cuba had to develop their own program for medicine? Because the United States hasn't allowed shipments or anything like that to get in. And because of that, they've developed it so well that they have become one of the best when it comes to medicine and developments there. And the thing is, the quote unquote pandemic and the quote unquote blockades, everything that the United States has been doing has made it really hard on the Cuban people because it deterred tourism. Tourism was something that Cuba relied on for its economy. And so when you take that away, you're depriving a lot of people. So yes, there's going to be inflation, there's going to be issues. But when it comes to, by the way, the Cubans never vote on their on who they select for president, they have a referendum where they can vote to change different things, including their constitution. So we don't have that. We don't have that. We can't even, you try to talk to some of these people about changing the constitution, they freak the hell out. They think the constitution is just, should always go back. It should be the way it is. Yeah. And that's sad. So that is just complete and total bullshit. And I understand if you are guided, first of all, who's she going there with? It's up until recently, I don't think you could go to Cuba. You had to go through this whole process. So how does she go every year? Unless she goes via a delegation or something like that. It's really suspect. And she's giving you all the talking points. And then the guy with Nicaragua saying, oh, they didn't have, they imprisoned a lot of the candidates. We spoke to the magistrate, to the president of the Supreme Electoral Council, and they explained how these people were just candidates in name. They said, oh, I'm going to be a candidate. And then how a lot of them were literally accepting money, like Costa mentioned, from these NGOs. Yeah. That were going to overthrow the government. They were wanting to. This isn't the first time. It was 2018 when the United States tried to do that. Ortega isn't going to allow it again. And of course, during the years before that, with Somoza, I mean, this is I read Contra affairs that the United States has continuously backed. Please, please, please don't tell me. Show me how you don't know history and how you don't know the history of your country and the regime changes they've done by telling me all these talking points. I mean, it is crazy. And by the way, that makes me want to go to Cuba tomorrow, because if I wasn't in Russia, I would literally, there should be a direct flight from Moscow to Havana. There just should be.
That's a long flight, but yeah, that should be. It really should be. And also something to think about too as well. And I really didn't want to address that woman who said that stuff. I was still concentrating on the panel and all the things that they said. And yeah, like we talked about it, these NGOs are funding, the Somoza family and whatnot. And pretty much Ortega said, well, reveal your bank accounts, reveal your statements, show us your finances, and then we'll say it's okay if you want to run or not. But if you're taking money from these NGOs, like you said, Ortega was done with it. They already had another coup backed again. I believe, was it 2017? Right? Was that the year?
18.
Was it 2018? And they tortured Sandinistas, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we knew it wasn't going to happen again. And for him to say, because they would have won, that is just BS. You're just repeating what the State Department says. You have no proof of that. And the fact is they're still living by this whole, oh, you have to go vote for the opposition. Do you know how hard it would be to pull something like that off? No. From what we have observed, from every country we've been to, we have seen a fair, transparent process. And we've also talked to a lot of the people, and the people are the ones who want a national sovereignty and change. So don't come over here hyping our government to go over and turn that a government because you don't like it and you're being a little Uncle Tom about it. I'm sorry. This is bullshit.
And by the way, the Venezuelans we met in Tijuana are some of the most just strong, humble people I have ever met. Thanks to my meeting with some of these Venezuelans, I made a contact here, a Venezuelan here who's in Russia right now and who helped me get my things settled, because guess what? I didn't have a bank account for the first few weeks where I was here. And that not having that bank account, it just talking about how the sanctions affected their people, what the U.S. sanctions have done to Venezuela, how it was so difficult for many of them to stay there, to stay there because of how bad it was. But they stayed because they wanted to prove the point that the United States, they wouldn't let the United States, that they wouldn't let the West control them, that they would fight back. They wouldn't give in, because that's the point of sanctions. It's to squeeze everything out of the population so they can blame the people in power, so then they can overthrow the government and allow the United States in there to do whatever they want. That is the whole goal of sanctions, to exhaust the people so they leave. And people leave, and it's understandable that they leave, but you have to know why some people didn't leave, and why Maduro had all the support of the people of Venezuela, and why Venezuela right now has oil that the United States wants so bad, but they still refuse to recognize Maduro as a legitimate president. And they continue to recognize Juan Guaido, who was literally thrown out by some of his own supporters from a restaurant.
He's starting to get recognized, fam.
Yeah, for the worst reasons, right? And the United States, of course, had the audacity of inviting him and not Maduro as for the Biden Democracy Summit of the Americas. And I mean, this is just what we're seeing here is really saddens me, because it's the propaganda that these people who say they're anti-big government, anti-authoritarian, we're going to question COVID, but you don't question this. You don't question the same government that is perhaps creating so many lies to control people. Who is doing that on that end? You think that it's good, that it's helping your freedom in this respect? It's just as bad, if not worse, than the left, who says I'm an anti-imperialist, but I'm going to swallow the whole COVID narrative. And it's that same type of team sports mentality that really plagues both ends of the political spectrum. And it's not even ends. It's just they're a lot closer than they think, really. Because at the end of the day, they're falling in line with the same type of rhetoric, just parts of it that they pick and choose because it falls with their ideology.
The thing that really got into it with Daniel DiMartino in the hallway. So we go out there, we start talking. Now Daniel said some stuff in the meeting that kind of, like, in the panel, that kind of just made me like, Daniel DiMartino was the one that was to the right of Martha Bueno, who was in the middle. And he goes, well, at the end of the day, the leaders of Venezuela, the leaders of Nicaragua, and Cuba, these are dictators and they are murderers. And I don't stand behind murderers. So we're in the hallway. We're kind of getting into it again. We're talking about Petro, and he says, and I'm going to repeat this: at the end of the day, these guys are murderers. I'm like, oh, you're going to stand with the United States State Department, right? Okay. They got clean hands over here. When are you going to realize, buddy, no such thing as good guys and bad guys? There's bad guys and bad guys. And you're going to stand with a country that just dropped bombs, that once dropped bombs on civilians in freaking Japan and killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people and act all virtuous over there, pal. Give me a break with your I'm not going to stand behind murderers, pal. Like, it got to that tone, and it was like, oh, so I was like, give me a break. I'm not going to stand with murderers, fam. I love this country, United States, and I will stand with them. Yeah, they got clean hands over there, clean as a whistle, pal.
Yeah, stand with a country that has nearly 1,000 military bases all over the world, and is responsible for so many regime changes and so many coups that John Bolton just boasted about how much work it is to orchestrate these coups and how smart you have to be to do them. So please stand with the country that calls everybody a dictator and says that, we need to bring democracy, while simultaneously democracy has been a detriment to the people that were supposedly brought it by the United States. It has completely created a slave trade in Libya.
Yep.
It has destabilized the West Asia or the Middle East. It has created about so much poverty in Africa. And the moment these people fight back, they're accused of being brutal dictators. And you can talk about Syria, you can talk about Iran, you can talk about Afghanistan.
Socialism.
What's happening in Afghanistan, that's the result of the United States intervention. That's a result of a 20-year war that the United States did to prove a point, and they're trying to do the same thing in Ukraine. So, okay.
Yeah, socialism, communism, bad. Capitalism, good. Please.
You live in a capitalist system and you're complaining about the government and all this shit, and you blame it on a thing that doesn't exist in your country. It doesn't make any sense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Yeah. You want freedom and liberty, yet shit's going on in your country, but you want your other government removed for those people fighting back. And like you said, fam, at the end of the day, 1,000 military bases. Look at the Pentagon budget. Look how much money we spend on war. How can people argue against this? And this is the issue I have with some of the conservatives in this country, is that they think that it's okay, our foreign intervention. And they're like, please, at what point are we going to let these countries take accountability for what they did? As soon as we leave those countries, people, as soon as we get our financial institutions out of those countries, as soon as we get our corporations out of those countries and let those countries exist, as soon as we let them pick their own government, as soon as we let them have their national sovereignty, that's when I will hold those countries accountable, not when we are pulling the strings. And that's something that you can't admit and you have a hard time of dealing with. And that's America's control and foreign policy over the whole friggin' globe. 1,000 bases. Deal with it. Deal with it. Boom. Arem, you made me cry. You really did. I saw this come in. Thank you for the Super Ray this morning. Thank you for the Super Ray right now. I'm choked up and humbled that you do this for us. For Pasta being Pasta, for Queen Fiorella, and for the real Oz, not that fake wizard one. Eat some food and get some sleep. Thank you so much. Arem, I need some sleep. I'm on 3 hours of sleep. Yesterday, I came here, started dumping stuff and going over schedules and all that other stuff, trying to get a couple videos up. I had to spend hours on my days off. So I am, and I know Fee's been working like crazy. The other night, she stayed up to 2 o'clock in the morning just to do the Jimmy Dore show with me. And that was fun. That was awesome. That's how Don saw us. Don reached out to me after that. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We'll try to get it worked out. We'll try to get Don back on. Maybe he can use a different way to connect with us. But thank you so much, Arem. Thank you so much to everybody who left the Super Raise. Thank you to all our Patreons and the people who leave money on PayPal and all the people who put us in the play, guys. You mean the world to us because we don't have any corporate sponsors. We have you. And it's like when Maj Toure came on the morning show and he says, what we need to do as a society, what we need to do as we, the people, is we have to find the people who are willing to go to these spots and do the real reporting, to do the real citizen journalism. We have to give them a few bucks to get them to go to the spots where the mainstream media won't go and report back to us. And that's what you guys have done for us. I cannot wait to go to Brazil and observe that election. There's so many things that are in play, and that's going to be amazing. And the opportunity to witness that. So thank you so much, fam. You got anything else to say, anything else to promote and plug before we get the hell on out of here?
Yeah. So tomorrow on RT, I'm not sure when. Just look out for me. Woo-hoo. I did a thing on, well, you guys will see, but basically Zelensky is pissed at Canada and Trudeau because they're basically giving back this Siemens-made gas turbine to Germany because they don't want to let Europe freeze to death, essentially, because Europe is in really bad shape. So the one of the officials of Canada made a statement like a few days ago, and then today, yesterday, it was delivered back to Germany. This it's for the Nord Stream pipeline. And so Zelensky is basically upset. A few of the Ukrainian, I think, foreign minister is calling them traitors and saying NATO has done nothing for Ukraine in spite of the billions that have been given by 25 out of 28 NATO countries. So you guys will see this report on RT from yours truly. And yes, just check it out. Yeah. Fans.
We will be watching on the Rumbles, on the Odyssey, if you got a chance. Ladies and gentlemen, pretty soon, the CONVO Couch will be going to Rumble. There's also another platform, fam, Ben Swan's platform. I saw Ben Swan over the weekend. He was awesome. He remembered me. Hey, Pasta, how you doing? I was really humbled by that. We talked about sovereign Sovereign's about to go live soon. They're about to start their live streaming in a couple months, not less than 2 months, I believe. So that will be aboard soon. So Sovereign might be another possibility.
I love
Definitely
it.
look for us on Rumble. We got to move all around in these different channels and whatnot, because anytime they're taken down, blocked, or demonetized. One of the things they talked about, which Ben talked about in his panel about tech giants, was when they did what they did to Parler. Parler never came back and never recuperated.
Mhm.
Nobody went to Parler. So it was just a low blow, and we got to be prepared across the board. I'm not crazy. I'm not really, like, when it comes to Rumble, I'm nervous. That's Peter Thiel shit, and that can easily be taken down. So we're gonna diversify our bonds. So look for us on other platforms. But a special thank you to you guys out there who watch us, follow us, and put us into play, guys. It means the world to us. We can't do it without you, and we're going to keep doing it as long as you put us in play to do so, fam. That's it.
Yeah, fam. More freedom.
Freedom. Remember, next year we'll go to Freedom Fest when they have 33% more freedom. I want to thank everybody out there for watching today, all the Super Raid people, especially A-Rem with that beautiful generosity. Thank you so
And give
much.
Paso a round of applause for dealing with the conservatives and such neocons, because not all conservatives are on there, but the neoconish takes. That took a lot of patience. I probably wouldn't have been as respectful as you, because Pasta is a nice one. Everybody, Pasta.
But I was part of the press. I was part of the audience. And listen, I'm just trying to get into the Lion's Den and talk to those people. It's like when I talked to Angela McArdle, who was the new chair of the Libertarian Party. The Mises Caucus is now the new management running that party. She had told me, we had spoke. She's like, I am eyeing people like you guys to take a look at this party over here. We are we're for freedom of the press. Scott Horton said in the interview I was given to him, he mentioned Julian Assange and said, pretty much talked about Free Assange. They're about civil liberties, getting rid of censorship, freedom of the press, and anti-regime. If those things are a compromise and we get those three things with this party, I know we're not going to agree on healthcare. I know we're not going to agree on fracking. I know we're not going to agree on economics. There's a lot of things we won't agree with. But I will take those other three things as a compromise, fam, because I believe they are the most important things. And, there's a lot of me that thinks a lot like my other co-host for the morning show, Steve, where the system is so flawed, it's so messed up, that why beat your head against the wall anyways when it's so messed up? But, I don't know. I want desperately more than anything to have a third party in this country. I believe that is the next step. That is the incrementalism we need to change things up. However, the system is so flawed, it's going to be an uphill battle. But it's the inside-outside strategy. So, I'm not completely sold on the Libertarian Party yet at all. But I'm keeping my eyes open, because if we are serious about a third party, if we are going to take the avenue that a third party could get in there, this is the only party that really has a shot right now, by far, fam. Every other party, any other small party, the Green Party being in fourth place, is still way, way behind. They don't even have ballot access to almost half the countries when it comes to, the presidential election. So, if we're thinking strategic over here, we have to take a look at this party and see what they're all about. But that's just keeping an eye. That's not making a blind commitment. There's a lot of work to be done for that party. So we'll see what's what.
All righty, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.
So for Pasta Jardula
Fiorella.
and us, those ones and twos, fam.
With the overalls.
With the overalls.
Convo out. I think I'm loopy from tiredness.
Yes. Is that what it is?
I think so.
Why is she so jittery? Jesus, why is she so jumpy?
I had coffee and sugar, and I think that's what it is.